The night of the Westfield Charity Gala was supposed to be just another obligatory social event for me. Another evening of polite smiles, champagne sips that never emptied my glass, and conversations that wouldn't make it to my memory the next morning. I'm Eliza Mitchell, 32, Arts Foundation Director by day, reluctant socialite by necessity. My invitation had arrived 6 weeks earlier, embossed in gold lettering that practically screamed, "Attendance mandatory," for anyone hoping to secure donors in this city. I remember standing in front of my bedroom mirror that evening, smoothing down the midnight blue dress I'd splurged on, wondering if I could feign food poisoning and stay home with a good book instead. But responsibility won out, as it always did. Little did I know that this particular gala would be anything but forgettable, all because of her, and a coat rack that would change everything. Her name was Adrienne Caldwell. I'd heard of her, of course. Everyone in our circles had. Brilliant architect, recently returned from establishing her firm's Paris office, with a reputation for being as charming as she was intimidating. What the rumors hadn't prepared me for was her presence, the way she seemed to bend the light in a room toward herself without trying. I first glimpsed her from across the grand ballroom of the Hawthorne Hotel, her tailored black suit a stark contrast to the sea of gowns, her dark hair falling in waves just past her shoulders. She was laughing at something someone had said, and the genuine joy on her face made my chest tighten unexpectedly. Let me explain why that moment mattered so much. In these social circles, authentic emotion is as rare as an empty glass. Everything is calculated, the laughs, the gasps, the sympathetic nods. But Adrienne's laugh reached her eyes, creating tiny crinkles at the corners that made her seem both younger and more distinguished simultaneously. I found myself staring, champagne flute halfway to my lips, until my friend Maya nudged me back to awareness. "Earth to Eliza," she teased, following my gaze. "Ah, I see. Adrienne Caldwell has claimed another victim." I remember feeling my cheeks flush. "I was just observing the room," I lied poorly. "Of course you were," Maya winked. "Just like everyone else who observes Adrienne when she enters a room. She's single, you know. Broke up with that gallery owner last spring." I hadn't known that, but I pretended the information meant nothing to me. That's the thing about these galas. They're equal parts networking opportunities and elaborate gossip exchanges. The Westfield Ballroom that night was particularly spectacular, transformed into what the invitation had described as a night in Versailles. Crystal chandeliers hung lower than usual, casting a warm glow over gilt-edged tables. Arrangements of white roses and hydrangeas towered from centerpieces, and the waitstaff glided between guests in period-inspired attire. It was beautiful, excessive, and exactly what one would expect from an event where tickets started at $5,000. I felt both in my element and completely out of place. As the director of the Harmon Arts Foundation, I was comfortable in formal settings, adept at the delicate dance of small talk and strategic conversation. But there was always a part of me that felt like an imposter, the daughter of public school teachers who'd worked her way through college, now mingling with old money and corporate fortunes. That night, the feeling was particularly acute, perhaps because I'd recently turned down a merger offer that would have tripled our endowment, but compromised our mission of supporting underrepresented artists. The decision had been right but difficult, and I knew several board members in attendance were still unhappy about it. I was midway through explaining our upcoming exhibition to a potential donor when I felt it, that peculiar awareness of being watched. Glancing up, I caught Adrienne's gaze from across the room. She didn't look away when our eyes met. Instead, she smiled slightly and raised her glass in the smallest of acknowledgments. My sentence trailed off, forgotten. "I'm sorry," I said to the bewildered donor. What was I saying? The next hour passed in a blur of conversations and silent awareness. No matter where I moved in the ballroom, I somehow knew exactly where Adrienne was, as if my body had developed a new sense specifically calibrated to her location. It was maddening and thrilling. I caught glimpses of her speaking animatedly to the museum director, laughing with the mayor, listening intently to an elderly woman I recognized as a prominent philanthropist. Each time, there was something magnetic about her gestures, the way she gave her complete attention to whoever she was speaking with. "You could just go talk to her," Maya suggested, appearing at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne. "Instead of this elaborate dance you two are doing." "We're not doing any dance," I protested, accepting the drink gratefully. And what would I even say? Hello, I've been staring at you all night like a creep. Care to discuss the weather? Maya rolled her eyes. You could start with your name and move on to literally any of the 1,000 interesting things you talk about when you're not being ridiculous. The Arts Initiative for Public Schools. Your thoughts on that controversial installation at MoMA. Your secret talent for knowing the lyrics to every 90s one-hit wonder. That last one might not be gala-appropriate conversation. I laughed, but I felt my resolve weakening. Why not approach her? The worst that could happen would be a polite but brief conversation before we both moved on to other people. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But before I could gather my courage, the crowd shifted, and Adrian was gone from her previous position. I felt a ridiculous pang of disappointment as I scanned the room unsuccessfully. I need some air, I told Maya, suddenly feeling the weight of the evening. The expectations, the networking, the constant awareness of Adrian pressing down on me. I'll be back in a few minutes. The hallway outside the ballroom was blissfully quiet, the sounds of the orchestra and conversation muffled by heavy doors. I took a deep breath, enjoying the momentary solitude. The Hawthorne was an old hotel, renovated to modern luxury standards, but still maintaining its historic charm. The hallway featured ornate molding and a plush carpet runner that muffled my footsteps as I wandered toward a small alcove where I knew there was a window seat overlooking the city. I was so focused on reaching my destination that I nearly collided with someone turning the corner. Oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't. The apology died on my lips as I found myself face to face with Adrian Caldwell. Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes were a deep brown that caught the warm hallway light, and there was a small, almost imperceptible scar near her right eyebrow that somehow made her face more interesting rather than less perfect. No harm done, she said, her voice lower and warmer than I'd imagined. You're Eliza Mitchell, aren't you? From the Harmon Foundation. The shock that she knew who I was must have shown on my face because she smiled. A genuine smile that transformed her features from merely beautiful to breathtaking. I make it a point to know the people doing interesting work in this city, she explained. Your recent decision to maintain independence rather than accept that merger was bold. I admired it. Thank you. I managed finding my voice. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one for our artists. The right choices rarely are easy, she agreed. I was actually hoping to speak with you tonight. I have some thoughts about your foundation's architecture initiative that I'd love to discuss. Just like that, the conversation flowed. We talked about the intersection of art and architecture, about public spaces and accessibility, about the projects her firm was passionate about, and the artists my foundation supported. Minutes stretched into what must have been nearly an hour, and neither of us seemed to notice that we were standing in a hotel hallway rather than rejoining the gala. I should probably get my jacket and call it a night, I said eventually, reluctantly. I have an early meeting tomorrow. I'll walk with you, Adrian offered. I think I've fulfilled my social obligations for the evening as well. The coat check was tucked into another alcove near the hotel's entrance, a temporary setup for the event with a long rack of garments attended by a single staff member who was currently nowhere to be seen, likely taking a well-deserved break before the mass exodus at the gala's end. What does yours look like? Adrian asked, scanning the packed rack. I can help you look. Black wool with silver buttons, I described, moving toward the rack. Should be near the middle somewhere. We both reached for the coats at the same moment, our hands brushing briefly. I felt that touch like an electric current, startling and warming all at once. Our eyes met, and something in her expression shifted, became more focused, more intent. Eliza, she said softly, and the way she said my name made my heart beat faster. What happened next seems both inevitable and impossible when I replay it in my mind. One moment we were standing beside the coat rack, and the next, she had stepped forward, her body close enough that I could smell her perfume, something with notes of sandalwood and vanilla. I took an instinctive step back and felt the wooden coat rack behind me. I should get my jacket, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, though I made no move to reach for it again. Adrian placed one hand on the rack beside my head, effectively keeping me in place without actually touching me. Your jacket can wait, she said, her eyes never leaving mine. Unless you want me to stop. The moment hung between us, fragile and charged with possibility. I could feel the weight of the coats pressing against my back through the thin material of my dress, could hear the distant sounds of the gala continuing without us, could sense the precipice we were standing on together. "I don't want you to stop," I admitted, finally being honest with myself as much as with her. Her kiss was confident but gentle, a question and an answer all at once. My hands found their way to her shoulders, feeling the expensive material of her suit jacket beneath my fingers as I pulled her closer. The coat rack creaked slightly under our weight, reminding me of exactly where we were, in a semi-public space where anyone could walk in at any moment. That thought should have made me pull away. Instead, it added a thrill of recklessness that was entirely foreign to my usually careful nature. Adrian seemed to sense my thoughts, smiling against my lips before deepening the kiss, one hand moving to my waist while the other remained braced against the rack. When we finally separated, both slightly breathless, she didn't step away immediately. Instead, she tucked a strand of hair behind my ear with a tenderness that contrasted with the intensity of moments before. "I've been wanting to do that since I first saw you across the ballroom," she confessed. "You looked so composed, so in control, and all I could think about was what it would take to make you lose that composure, just a little." I laughed softly, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Mission accomplished, I'd say. Only just beginning," she corrected with a smile that held promise. "But perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private than the coat check." Reality began to seep back in as I nodded agreement. What was I doing? This wasn't like me at all. Kissing a virtual stranger at a work event, considering leaving with her. And yet, it didn't feel wrong or out of character so much as it felt like discovering a part of myself that had been dormant until now. As if sensing my internal debate, Adrian stepped back slightly, giving me space. "No pressure, Eliza. We could simply exchange numbers and meet for coffee sometime. Or pretend this never happened, if that's what you prefer." The sincerity in her offer made my decision easier. Coffee seems rather anticlimactic after being pressed into a coat rack, don't you think? Her laugh was worth any risk, any deviation from my carefully planned life. "Fair point. Dinner, then? Tomorrow night. I'd like that." I agreed, finally reaching past her to locate my jacket on the rack. As I pulled it free, a small avalanche of other coats shifted, nearly falling to the floor before Adrian caught them. "The coat rack has served its purpose for the evening," she joked, helping me restore order to the garments. "Though I must say, I'll never look at one quite the same way again." We were still laughing, heads bent together over the rack, when the coat check attendant returned, looking slightly embarrassed to have found guests serving themselves. Adrian smoothly explained that we were just leaving and had been searching for our things, her composure perfect while I fought a guilty blush. Outside the hotel, the night air was crisp with early autumn, the city lights reflecting off puddles from an earlier rain. Adrian insisted on seeing me to my car, her hand occasionally brushing against mine as we walked, each contact deliberate but casual, maintaining the connection between us. "I'll call you tomorrow," she promised as we reached my car, taking the business card I offered. "About dinner." "I'll look forward to it," I said, meaning it more than I'd expected to. She opened my car door for me, an old-fashioned gesture that somehow didn't feel patronizing coming from her. Before I could get in, she leaned down for one more kiss, brief, but with enough intent to leave me wanting more. "Good night, Eliza Mitchell," she said, closing my door once I was settled inside. I watched her walk back toward the hotel entrance in my rearview mirror, her confident stride unmistakable even from a distance. Only when she disappeared from view did I let out the breath I'd been holding, along with a disbelieving laugh. The evening had started as an obligation, a necessary appearance for the sake of my foundation. It had ended with me pressed against a coat rack, kissing a woman I'd just met, making plans for tomorrow that had nothing to do with networking or fundraising. As I drove home through the quiet streets, I couldn't stop smiling. My jacket lay on the passenger seat beside me, the jacket that could wait, according to Adrian. Such a simple phrase, yet it had shifted something fundamental in my understanding of myself and what I wanted. For years, I'd put my personal life on hold while building my career, convincing myself that romance was a distraction I couldn't afford. One encounter, one kiss, one moment of spontaneity, and suddenly those priorities seemed worth reconsidering. My phone chimed with a text message as I pulled into my driveway. Unknown number, but I knew instantly who it was from. "Just making sure you got home safely, and confirming that you haven't changed your mind about tomorrow." I smiled as I typed my reply. "Safely home." and definitely still interested in tomorrow. Though I'm not sure any restaurant will live up to the coat check. Her response came quickly. Challenge accepted. That night, I fell asleep thinking not about donor strategies or exhibition timelines, but about brown eyes, a confident smile, and the unexpected joy of letting my jacket wait. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen when we least expect them, even at events we'd rather not attend, even in places as mundane as a coat check. Adrian had pressed me into that coat rack and into a new chapter of my life simultaneously, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The dinner the next night exceeded all expectations. Adrian had chosen a small, intimate restaurant tucked away on a side street, the kind of place locals kept secret from tourists. The food was extraordinary, but the conversation was better. We talked for hours, learning each other's stories, discovering shared passions and friendly disagreements. She told me about growing up in Chicago with architect parents, about her time in Paris, about the community center she was designing pro bono for her old neighborhood. I shared stories about my journey to the foundation, my vision for arts education, my collection of vintage art books that was slowly taking over my apartment. By the time dessert arrived, it felt like we'd known each other for years rather than days. That same electric awareness remained between us, but it was complemented now by something deeper, a genuine connection that went beyond physical attraction. I have a confession, Adrian said as we shared a chocolate souffle. I've actually been wanting to meet you for months. I attended the Foundation's spring showcase, but couldn't work up the courage to introduce myself. You? Nervous? I couldn't hide my surprise. You seem so confident. About some things, yes, she acknowledged with a smile. Buildings, designs, structural integrity, those I understand. But approaching a beautiful woman who's clearly passionate about her work and might not be interested in me? That's terrifying. Well, I'm glad the gala forced our paths to cross, I told her, reaching across the table to take her hand. Though I'm still not entirely convinced this isn't all an elaborate dream I'm having. If it is, she said, squeezing my hand gently, I'm having the same one. That dinner was the first of many. Over the following weeks, Adrian and I created our own world together, finding moments between our busy schedules to explore the city as if it were new to both of us. She showed me buildings I'd passed 100 times but never truly seen, pointing out architectural details and historical significance. I took her to small galleries and studios, introducing her to artists whose work spoke to both of us in different ways. And yes, there were more kisses against her apartment door, in the quiet corner of a museum, under an umbrella during an unexpected rainstorm. Each one felt both familiar and thrillingly new, like coming home to a place I'd never been before. Of course, it wasn't all romantic perfection. We had disagreements about art, about business ethics, about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She was firmly in favor. I remained skeptical. We had to navigate the complexities of two busy professionals trying to build something meaningful together. There were canceled dates due to work emergencies, misunderstandings that needed clearing up, moments of insecurity on both sides. But through it all, there was a foundation of respect and genuine interest that made even the difficult conversations worthwhile. Adrian challenged me to be more spontaneous, to trust my instincts both professionally and personally. I helped her see the value in slowing down occasionally, in savoring moments rather than always moving toward the next goal. 6 months after the gala, we returned to the Hawthorne Hotel for dinner. Adrian's idea, a sentimental journey to where it all began. The coat check was in its usual permanent location this time, not the temporary setup from the event. Still, we both glanced at it with knowing smiles as we handed over our jackets to the attendant. Not quite the same without the risk of coats avalanching onto us. Adrian whispered as we were led to our table. I think we can find other places for making memories, I replied, loving the way her eyes darkened slightly at my words. Dinner was lovely, the hotel restaurant living up to its reputation for excellence. As we finished our meal, Adrian seemed to grow more contemplative, almost nervous, a rare state for her. What's on your mind? I asked finally. You've been somewhere else for the last 10 minutes. She smiled, reaching across the table for my hand. I've been thinking about coat racks, actually. Should I be concerned about this fixation? I teased. Possibly, she admitted with a laugh. But hear me out. That night, when I saw you by the coat rack, I made a split-second decision to take a risk, to stop playing it safe and go after what I wanted. It was impulsive and unlike me, but it led to the best 6 months of my life. My heart began beating faster as she continued. I don't want to rush you or pressure you into anything, she said, her thumb tracing patterns on my palm. But I also don't want to play it safe anymore when it comes to us. I love you, Eliza. I love your passion and your principles and the way you see the world. I love how you've changed my life by being in it. And I want to keep building this relationship intentionally and honestly. I love you too, I said, the words coming easily because they'd been true for weeks already. And I'm not going anywhere. The relief and joy on her face was everything. Good, she said, because I have plans for us. Big, architectural plans with strong foundations and room for growth. Are you really using building metaphors right now? I laughed, blinking back unexpected tears of happiness. Occupational hazard, she shrugged unapologetically. But the point stands. I'm all in, Eliza, coat racks and all. Later that night, as we walked back through the hotel lobby, Adrian pulled me toward the coat check with a mischievous smile. The attendant had stepped away momentarily, leaving us alone with the racks of jackets. For old time's sake, she suggested, backing me gently against the rack just as she had 6 months earlier. You're impossible, I told her, even as I wrapped my arms around her neck. You love it, she countered, confident in the truth of her words. As her lips met mine, I couldn't help but think about how a single moment can change everything. One decision, one risk, one person who makes you realize that some things are worth waiting for, and others, like jackets on a cold night, can definitely wait. Total _char_count, 17,873.